Hi, my name is Delaney DeMott, and I am in the Fiber and Material Studies department.
Hi, Delaney.
Hi.
Thanks for having me in your studio.
It's my pleasure.
So can you tell me a little bit about what I'm seeing in your studio right now?
Yeah, all the work that you're seeing is mostly in progress, and a lot of the work is possible studies or parts that will merge together to make a whole piece. And that's usually how I work, where I make all these different parts and then pull them together into a piece or an installation.
So will some of these works be in the MFA show?
Yes, this fine young thing that you see sitting with me is part of a piece where its parts are back here, and this is going to be like a body as furniture type of piece, and then that gentleman that's looking at you seductively on the wall, a different version of him will be there with the sculptural element and maybe one other piece.
Great. So I see that a lot of your works have your face on it, and it's manipulated in some way or collaged or printed on fabric and used in different ways. Can you talk a little bit about why you do self-portraiture, or if you even call it that?
Yeah, they start off as photographs that I take through a webcam, and my goal is to create different characters, different women, mostly women characters, that where I use myself as sort of the base, but then through manipulation I no longer think of them as self-portraits. I think of them mostly as documentation of a character. And so, yeah, they're my face and then usually manipulated in Photoshop. It's a very low resolution image that I sort of play around with and collage in a digital program, and then also physically collage as well.
So you're kind of like you're using yourself as a model or case study.
Yeah, I think of it as like myself as the canvas, or like just as like the beginning, and then it morphs into other things too, you know, like so when the pieces are finished, I don't refer to myself when I'm speaking about the work. I talk about like this girl or this woman or this character. Yeah, and it's more instinctual. That language is more instinctual than it is purposeful. It's something that like, it just doesn't feel like me anymore. I've manipulated it so much.
Can you talk to me a little bit about some of the characters?
Yeah. So this character that's printed onto silk was, and this, you know, it's the same image, was based on this sort of narrative that I had in my head about a housewife who was sick of being left alone by her husband, and so she was in her craft room and she just lost her mind and decided to apply glitter, and her first step was to apply it to her lips, and eventually in other images she has glitter all over her face. And so this idea of like severe decorative adornment, kind of like, you know, brought on by loneliness. And I think about children when they're left alone, sometimes they get into like their parents' makeup, like their mom's makeup, or costume themselves, so it was also based on that.
So how much in character do you have to get for these roles?
Mentally or physically, you mean? Both?
Both.
Usually they're sort of, mentally they're based on maybe a place that I am anyway, that I'm in anyway, so I don't have to do much work. Usually it's like the way that I'm feeling spurs the character, and then as far as like the decorative part, like wigs or, you know, makeup or any of that, is mostly just like fun for me. So I just sort of like imagine who this woman would be. Like, is she a seductress? Well, then she'll have like black hair and big eyelashes, and I just like get I just get into like what I would assume the character would look like. Yeah.
So Delaney, I also see a lot of sculptures in your studio, and having known your work for some time, I would say that you have a real gift for transforming a lot of everyday or thrown away materials into something that's quite finished and weird.
I get that a lot. Weird. Yeah, I think I respond. I think I look for materials not in necessarily from a found perspective. I think when I choose materials, I'm looking very much for a visceral response, for me to have a visceral response to the material itself. So, you know, it could be, you know, this sort of like paper mache or paper laminate, or like, you know, when I make a material choice, like even in just material, I'm responding to like the natural aging of a material, and then to this like sort of gross flocked surface. So a lot of it is about touch, yeah, the haptic experience for me, and then a broad range. So if this is soft, then I'll pair it with something that maybe is more dense and hard. So I'm interested in that sort of back and forth dance that happens between materials. And I think it sets up a certain tension in my work that is very important.
And I don't know if there's any examples here, but you kind of play around with the incorporation of both these collages and sculptures, right?
Yeah, I guess it's tough. I mean, all the MFA pieces will have an example of that, like the red paper mache structure that's near the man that's on the wall is actually his leg, and so that'll be sort of paired with him or near him. So yeah, I think I do a lot of that back and forth where there's going to be some sort of sculptural element that's with a two-dimensional element, and a lot of times I'll build directly onto the wall, so the work becomes almost like 2.5D, with some sculptural elements coming off the wall. Yeah, so I'm really interested in that as well, the space between the 2 and the 3D, and hopefully unifying them or finding a way to bridge that space.
What does that space represent for you?
For me, it's sort of a troublesome space in that I have a romance with both digital, flat, two-dimensional, painting, print, design. I have those loves, and then I also have an innate sort of response to like make sculpture. So to me, it seemed natural to, instead of looking at it as like this more purgatorial space where nothing good could really, you know, be resolved, I've spent this last year really trying to find a way of bridging those two, because they're both my loves. So I wanted to really find a way where I could happily entertain both of them.
And something I enjoy about your work is that it doesn't seem to ever fit in like a binary where nothing is ever like good or bad.
No.
And it's like all of your work falls into the in-between space.
Yeah. I'm really interested in the space between. Yeah, and the withholding of the judgments of like something being good or bad. You know, and I think my work, when people approach it, they're only like, I think it's very similar to what you said. Like their sort of immediate response is it's weird, because you can't quite tell if you're in love with it or you're hating it. You know, there's something there that you kind of want to unpack, but there's something that keeps you kind of repelled. So it ends up being weird. But yeah, I think I would hope, you know, and I know that people have lately wanted more, and so they stay with the work for a little bit longer to sort of figure out the multiple dimensions of the work, because there are a lot of dimensions. Yeah, it's complicated. Art is complicated.
But think complicated art is oftentimes most engaging.
Yeah, I would hope so, yeah.
Well, thank you for having me in your studio, and I'm looking forward to seeing your work in the MFA show.
Me too.